Frank Clark. He's on the market, so we've heard. The Seahawks. Nope, not going to give you that one. The Seahawks spent all this money on Russell Wilson, and of course, the domino that falls immediately after, and the reason that he'll be criticized if they manage to stumble to a unsuccessful season next year, is that they can't pay all of these other players. So Frank Clark is the next guy, and the rumor is that he might garner a first-round pick, and that a team that might be interested in said Frank Clark for a first-round pick deal are your Kansas City Chiefs. Can I get how that makes you feel?
Yeah, we have our draft show on Thursday night. I was told that unlike when the Chiefs drafted Derek Nottie, I can't yell an expletive when the Chiefs make a decision that I don't agree with. This would be a tough one. I looked at Frank Clark's WAR the other day. Not terrible, but he has not lived up even to the average rookie deal WAR of the 29th overall pick to this point. He's obviously got all the issues the Chiefs have struggled with over the last few years, which is Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, which is like Marcus Peters drafting character issue guys. Like I think I wouldn't want the Chiefs to touch him with a 40-foot pole no matter how good he is.
Ooh, 40 foot. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's where I draw the line. 45.
The Grinch is like 37.5 or 39.5. Here is, so first off, I managed to not go expletive-laden response to my Niners pick last year, despite my love.
You're a stronger man than me.
Despite my love for Derwin James that continues to burn strongly. The Chiefs are interesting because a lot of people right now presume their pass rush is going to regress a lot because of Houston and Ford. And their defense was so bad last year that everyone sort of puts those two things together and says, oh, the Chiefs defense can only go down. Here's the interesting thing. Their coverage was so bad, and coverage is not a stable thing. If their coverage simply goes back to low 20s, it doesn't matter if their pass rush regresses. Their overall defense will improve. If that defense just goes from, bottom 5 to, 20th, all of a sudden that is a Super Bowl contending team without a doubt.
Yeah, they're. I mean, the thing that's nice is that's why also the 29th pick is the thing that's going well for the Chiefs right now is the fact that the DeAndre Bakers, the Greedy Williams, the Byron Murphys, the Rocky Sins, they're all falling to where the Chiefs are more than likely going to get an opportunity at having one of those good cornerbacks at 29.
Sure.
Or a small trade up to the 25 or something like that, but like it's setting up perfectly for them because
those guys will be there.
Yeah, because right now that's what they need. They have Kendall Fuller, who's a good inside-outside player, but after that, there's a ton of question marks with Rashad Breeland and Charvarius Ward. And here's the kicker. We're going to talk about this with the Bengals too because their defense was terrible last year. Is the Chiefs face the 21st most difficult schedule of opposing offenses this year, which means they don't even have to get fundamentally better. They will have a better outcome defensively because their schedule is better, and we're going to see that with the Bengals too. So as you said, I think like regression is in store. You take that, you add the best quarterback in the NFL with one of the best offensive coordinators, and you have a chance.
That's a great point. So the thing is, with a team like the Chiefs, I never worry about the regular season.
Yeah.
I just think about the playoffs. I think about that impending New England matchup where if they can just put together any sort of coverage, if they get me out there, when a team motions random white slot receiver into the slot every single third down for the 14 consecutive third downs and converts every time, they'll be able to stop one of those. They win that game. We're going to move on to draft props. So our favorite draft prop, the prop that I am significantly invested in, is one that you can't really find out there anymore, and that's Cuyler Murray going either at number 1 or to the Arizona Cardinals. Or both. When that came out, the Cardinals taking Cuyler Murray, I believe, was plus 500.
Yep, we got that.
All in, to the limit. And then him going number 1 overall was, I think, plus 350, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I think plus 300 was the one that we ended up settling on, but it's still a substantial value there.
All in on both. And then there was also, I think they even offered him going in the top 9 or something like that, or top 7, which again, we went all in on. Now he's about minus 1,000 if you can even find him for either one of those. So none of those are on our draft prop list, but you are a degenerate SOB. Not going to make Stopsky edit anything out. And so you can't help yourself. So you found some others. So let's start with this one. First defensive back drafted. Greedy Williams, plus 105. Byron Murphy, plus 245. DeAndre Baker, plus 490. Nasir Adderley from Delaware, plus 850. The field is plus 400. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and these could have changed within the last day or so, but
directionally correct.
What I like here, I like the field, frankly, because I think Rocky Sin is somebody who is, there might be a team that likes him specifically, and there was chatter yesterday about a safety, right? So. The Darnell Savage, right, who blew up at the Senior Bowl, had a really good 40 time. He's not even on this list. And like if a team decides they need a safety first, right, it might not be this Nasir Adderley. It could be, the aforementioned. So, like for me, none of these are great. Like Greedy Williams at plus 105 isn't a great bet, but like none of these are great bets to me, except for I think the field, because it's just a good possibility.
To me, the only reason that I think Greedy Williams is locked in it going first out of this group is because NFL teams are so devoted to taking guys that are fast. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't be the person that we would take. I don't think anyone in the building here would say that's a clear cut. He is the best guy, but I do think that he goes first. But plus 105 isn't great, so I can get on board with you there.
What about the team to pick Dewayne Haskins? So the Giants are plus 210. The Raiders are plus 260. Dolphins plus 850. That kind of like that. The Broncos plus 890. And the Redskins at plus 900. The field is plus 175. So the field is actually theoretically more likely than the five aforementioned teams. What do you think?
So my question is, okay, so looking at the teams here, let's try and rule them out. Okay, so you've got the Giants. We've heard they like Daniel Jones. Okay, so say they go Daniel Jones. The Raiders, they could easily go no QB. We'll talk about them in a second. The Dolphins, the Broncos,
just don't see it, man.
And the Redskins are all interesting. We hear Drew Locke, the Broncos a lot because John Elway.
Yeah.
But it would be strange if Dwayne Haskins falls. The Dolphins and the Redskins are sitting there. Why would they not just pull the trigger? I don't know. I don't.
So the thing that makes me want to at least sprinkle a little bit on Dolphins plus 850 is that I don't see it happening. And so oftentimes you get surprised by these things. And for the Dolphins, they're clearly in a tank. They have, the Fitzpatrick, bridge to nowhere. And I don't think that they were expecting Haskins to fall this far when they made all those decisions. Do you just, bump it up a year and you're looking at, if you're a Dolphins team right now and you're in a multiple year rebuilding process and you look at the Arizona Cardinals probably willing to move on from Josh Rosen just 1 year into his rookie deal, aren't you more empowered to take a chance on a quarterback before you are really ready? Because that there's not going to be this public outcry if you take Haskins and then you cut bait on him 1 year in.
I think I like the Dolphins. I think I would also if I'm putting a small bet, I'm putting a small bet on the Dolphins and the Redskins.
Yeah.
I like both those. If you think about the field real quick, what's one team that you think might snatch him?
Well, the Bengals aren't on here.
Bengals are interesting.
I think the hometown Bengals he might be enticing to the hometown Bengals. He's very Dalton-like in some of his comps.
Let me give you a sneaky one here. The Jags.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that the Jags are an interesting team in that sometimes they're super forward-thinking and sometimes they're not. And they could be super forward-thinking here and say, look, we're at 7, and why not?
There's a lot of smart people on the Jaguars, but there's oftentimes interactions that don't make sense, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of decisions that don't always seem like they're the constant theme.
Okay. Redskins, Dolphins, Dwayne Haskins, welcome. Draft position for our favorite, our number one guy, Josh Jacobs. The over 24.5 is minus 265. Under 24.5 is plus 190. I'm just going to say this right now. He is going in the top 24. There is no doubt about it. Lock it up.
I honestly, last year, I think both of us being a part of this process for the first time, were very surprised at some of the things teams did.
We were optimistic.
I will not be surprised. So where are some of the teams here? The Houston Texans.
The key is that it's 24.5.
Right, because 24 is Oakland. That's their second first round pick. They need a running back.
They do.
Houston,
desperately.
even though Lamar Miller had a bounce back year last year, need a running back.
Yep.
They're at 23. The Ravens, right? Like, I know they got Ingram. I know that they got
desperately need one.
The
Falcons need a running back.
Even the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just lost Le'Veon Bell at 20. Titans.
Now that I look at it, so many teams that need a running back.
The probability that none of these teams are going to make a silly decision is zero.
The Seahawks are at 21.
They filled it. Sorry. And then here's the other one that I put.
Now that you say that, the Seahawks. Welcome to Seahawks. And a team that doesn't have a first round pick, it might want to trade up.
Can you imagine?
The Chicago Bears.
And then the companion bet, I think, which is the number of running backs selected in the first round, over 1, under 1. Over 1 is plus 200.
Interesting.
Which to me was very similar to the over 5 quarterback prop last year, where you sort of, and it ended up being a sweat, but you knew that there was a great chance there was going to be 5 quarterbacks taken, and then the question was, for the plus 180 was last year with the over 6 quarterbacks, you get kind of a free roll, right? What are the odds that there are no running backs taken in the first round, given the current state of the NFL?
Sadly, so low.
So you're basically free rolling plus 200 here, right? Because there's the likelihood that you're going to go under 1 is not very high. So I like the bet for the over there. Again, we're betting on the irrationality of some of the folks.
David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, you never know.
This is one that has moved a little bit, but Montez Sweat over 7.5 draft position. When I put it in the notes, it was minus 375. It's now minus 400 on current a book that we used to have.
That we used to know.
Yeah. and under 7.5 is plus 265. A lot of issues with the heart condition and just the overall question of, does his athletic ability match his football potential?
Production?
I really do like the Montez Sweat over 7.5 there, especially because I think are still underestimating a run on quarterbacks in the top 8 picks.
We
squeezes out a guy like that.
The tough thing about this is that he does play a position that generally I think is overvalued, despite still being valuable. But we saw what happened to Maurice Hurst.
Yep.
With the question, the tough thing is for teams in the top 7, that pick is so vital. They just have to have him on the field. The thing that they can't have is some guy not being on the field. They've got to make that happen.
Yeah. Let's jump ahead here to Drew Locke. So the last one we'll do, Drew Locke, draft position over 10.5 is plus 130. Under 10.5 is minus 160. As you said with the Josh Jacobs pick, this is really the fulcrum, right, is the 10 where Denver Broncos currently sit. The question that I have now is that with Daniel Jones in the mix at 6, does that push, is Haskins suddenly in play for Denver? Does that push Locke back? I don't know. I think this is a good line, and I think that the odds are solid. Well put. Yeah.
Here's my thought with this. There have been things written about our good buddy Drew Locke, comparing him to Pat Mahomes, comparing him to Brett Favre. If one team believes this, they're going to say, "Oh, you know what the Chiefs did last year? They went up, or 2 years ago, they went up, they got their guy, changed their organization." So I could easily see him going in the top 10, not necessarily to a team that's in the top 10, but a team like the Dolphins, a team like the Redskins. Maybe the Giants sit there and say, look, secretly all along, this has been our guy, and they package 17 and something else to move up. A team like the Titans, for example, who I know people will get angry about, but hey, look, you never know.
I mean, Mariota is far from a sure thing.
Absolutely. So I think I would go with the under 10.
All right. Should we start our top 10 mock draft for 2019? The PFF forecast mock draft.
We've done a lot of research here to come up with the most analytically sound.
So how about you take the odd picks, because I know you want number one really badly.
Interesting.
And I'll take the even picks.
Okay.
And
it's interesting that you think I want the odd ones really badly. All right. With the first pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Cuyler Murray, Oklahoma.
Okay.
You got a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with that.
Excellent.
I very much like that.
Great.
I think the 49ers try their hardest to trade number two because that's the smart thing to do. However, they are not able to find a suitor and end up taking Nick Bosa, edge, Ohio State.
Excellent. By the way, is this the draft that we would make?
No. I wanted pick 4 specifically.
So we're predicting.
Yeah. So we're predicting.
All right. The Jets are going to take. This is a tough one. I think they take Quinnen Williams.
Right. So the Jets are interesting because their real need is at edge, right? Because they had Leonard Williams on the interior. But now the Jets for a decade basically had this problem where they have no edge players and all interior players. So I think they desperately try to trade out of this pick. But
yes.
Okay. At pick number 4, the Oakland Raiders, am going to take Dewayne Haskins.
That's the wrong pick. Josh Jacobs still on the board.
I know, but to me, I think this is the best kept secret in the entire draft. I do think the Raiders go with Dewayne Haskins here.
Interesting. So have they just been throwing? Do you think they also tried to trade up?
Yes, but I think that they're in a position where they didn't try that hard to trade up, because I don't think that Dewayne Haskins is a drop off of Murray, but I don't think it's 2 first-round picks of a drop off given the uncertainty.
Interesting. All right. The Bucks. Josh Jacobs, Buccaneers. I can't say it with straight face.
Did you see our friend Evan Silva, the great Evan Silva, on Twitter talked about Miles Sanders going to Tampa in the second round and said Tampa Bay is going to be a perfect spot for a rookie running back because of the offensive line. The funniest thing is I think Jacobs will have success there.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
And as Ian Rappaport said when Saquon Barkley won Rookie of the Year, it'll vindicate a decision that was much maligned.
Yep.
All right, at 6, I think the New York Giants will take Daniel Jones. I do think that's real. I do think it's hilarious. It's the second Duke quarterback that will be a starting quarterback for the Giants after Dave Brown in 94, and both of them were 17.
I'm torn here on the Jaguars, but I think ultimately they probably go with TJ Hawkinson.
Right. Our friend C. Palazzolo on Twitter said that he likes Hawk. He does not like him in the top 10. Our friend Mike Renner said he would never take a tight end in the first round given the hit rate.
Yes, I would never do this.
Yeah, I think that Nick Foles, the narrative is going to be that Nick Foles had a ton of success throwing to Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, and that this is the missing piece.
I could see them going wide receiver though.
Mm-hmm. I just don't think a wide receiver garnered. I do think that Hawkinson's value above any tight end in the draft is bigger than Metcalf's value over any other wide receiver.
I agree.
So, okay, at 8, the Detroit Lions select Devin White, linebacker, LSU.
I actually think that's a really good pick.
Yeah, I mean they need corners, but I don't know if the value at 8. I think they could try to trade back. They're a smart. They have some smart components to them, but. At 8, I don't think that they. I don't think that they find value there at corner. They do need one though.
And there's been a lot of talk about the two Devons, right, at linebacker. I think Mike wrote a pretty good piece about it. But Devin White provides the ability to cover a lot better.
And if you look, pick 8 last year was Roquan Smith, right, of Georgia, and in the Chicago Bears went from being a decent defense to an elite defense. Detroit's in that same division. Sort of, they tried to get Anthony Barr. Right, that defense is pretty good up front. They got a slot corner in Justin Coleman. They have a pretty good corner in Darius Slay. So maybe you round out that defense with a really good coverage linebacker, and you get a lot better there. Not a terrible pick, I don't think.
All right, I think that the Buffalo Bills should go corner. But I think they will go tackle, and I think they take Jonah Williams.
Good. Jonah's a good prospect. And Buffalo, they got rid of Cordy Glenn going into last year. They need some reinforcements there. They got Ty Nsekhe, but he's kind of a swing guy. All right, at 10, I do think the Denver Broncos select Drew Locke of Missouri.
I agree. I think that makes perfect sense for the Denver Broncos. At 11, the Cincinnati Bengals, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Bengals here. Basically a nightmare season for them last year, going 6-10, which is funny to think about because they won 6 games with Jeff Driscoll. They had no AJ Green. It's a nice litmus test for like how bad you can be and still win games in the NFL. The Bengals managed to do that. And I think this year they're certainly going to fly under the radar without a doubt. And if they can stay healthy, 6 wins shouldn't be that big of a deal, which is why we brought this up at the last week. I think they're a great candidate to go over their current number, which is 6, right?
Yeah, last season pre-draft we wrote up that we liked their over 5.5. That moved substantially, so they ended up going under their closing line, but over the 5.5 we had for them. They started 4-1, and they were ahead of Pittsburgh at home in that rain-soaked game. And Antonio Brown caught a pass, probably aided by offensive pass interference. They were a play away from being 5-1 with basically a game and a half over anybody else in that division, and then faded because Dalton got hurt. We had them in 4 games. We faded them +6 or -6.5 against the Dolphins. Dolphins have a 17-0 lead in that game. End up not even covering 6.5.
At that point, you had to think the Bengals were playoff bound. I mean, that was ridiculous.
We faded them in that Pittsburgh game. Pittsburgh was +2. We got a win there. We faded them at Cleveland the Thanksgiving weekend. That was a win. Cleveland blew them out. And then we took the over when they faced LAC with Driscoll. And that game did not go over because of a couple missed 2-point conversions. So we were 2-2 picking their games. Probably should have been 4-0. It was a strange season for them. Interestingly, though, what I thought was the most underrated thing for the Bengals this season was an emergence of Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
He was worth over a win above replacement. He was the second most valuable player on the Bengals. And when you couple that with AJ Green, right? Green's been, since 2011 when he was drafted, Green has been the 3rd most valuable receiver in the NFL, behind it by a mile, but behind Antonio Brown, behind Julio Jones, just ahead of DeAndre Hopkins, who he had a basically 2-year head start on. When you look at that offense, like Dalton played pretty well last year. Joe Mixon has some versatility. Green, Boyd on the outside, Dalton playing well. Defensively, they were terrible last year, but they get a better schedule. They have William Jackson, who's an elite corner, Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, Jesse Bates replacing George Iloka last year. I think that they have potential, and it's not so much I'm betting on their over as much as I'm betting on fading the 3 other teams in that division and the Bengals picking up a win or two that we don't expect them to.
I checked the number. It's 6. I love the over 6 for them for the reasons you mentioned. Also, William Jackson is fantastic. Had a down year last year, so flying a bit under the radar. One of the cool things about Boyd and Green was how frequently they switched. So Boyd thought of as the slot guy. AJ Green, I believe, had a perfect passer rating out of the slot last year. It was ridiculous.
Before getting hurt. A common theme for him.
But when those guys switched, so when they would put Green in the slot and they would put Boyd out wide, I believe Dalton had a 140+ pass rating. They were really uniquely gifted in that way, which is versatility is an underrated aspect of being good on offense in the NFL. To me, this pick at 11 is advantageous because if a quarterback falls, you could have a team trading up. But it's a pick that's back far enough that you're able to take a really good player that might be falling under the radar. I look at a Dalton Reisner. Who knows if they have the same opinion that we do of him, but we saw how much Andy Dalton struggled when he didn't have enough clean pockets. Last year it got a little bit better, but the story with Dalton is give him a clean pocket, he can be a top 12 quarterback. He was last year. He was 6th in grade from a clean pocket last year. So I like them going tackle. I think probably if Devin White falls, they consider that. They could also go corner. But to me, a tackle makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, he's in the top 15 in both negatively graded throw rate and positively graded throw rate last season. Second in basically our percentage of throws that we call accurate plus, which again, when you're talking about receivers like AJ Green, who kind of poor man's Randy Moss in the sense that he can make contested catches and things like that. You got Boyd, Tyler Eifert, who is really a catalyst for how the last time their offense was really good. Returns for them. That pick 11 is in a sweet spot where you can get one of those secondary premium positions like tackle, and no one's going to bat an eyelash at you, right? No one's going to say, you really should have traded back. You really should have done this. And there's going to be a ton of guys there. There's going to be the Williams. There's going to be the Dillards. There's going to be the Reisners, all there. So whomever they like there will really come in and supplement that offense.
Here's one sneaky thing I like. Bring in Zach Taylor. What are the things that the Rams did for Jared Goff? They said, look, we're going to give you open throws.
Yep. We're going to move the pocket.
We're going to allow you. We're going to give you a throw. You got to make it.
Yeah.
It might not be the easiest throw, but we're going to give it to you. And that is, to me, the setup that Dalton can thrive in. He may not be able to create things when stuff is kind of crumbling upon him. But I feel like you can get a lot out of him if you do that. 44% of his throws last year were to guys with 2 or more steps of separation. That's almost 10% below the league average. So to me, that number increases. He's been accurate to guys that are open, which is a stable.
The Rams offense also, granted, they had good offensive linemen, but they also had offensive linemen that no one had really liked prior. So John Sullivan was coming off of an injury-plagued sort of career. Roger Saffold, players like that, that they made that offensive line look really good. Bengals offensive line a little weaker, but maybe they can look better as a result of this scheme. The thing I like the most about the Bengals, though, is again, last season, they were terrible defensively, right? They were 30th in total defense EPA, 28th against the pass, 31st against the run, got a new defensive coordinator. I don't think that necessarily matters as much as the fact that what goes around comes around in the NFL. They have the 23rd toughest schedule in terms of PFF ELO, 26th of opposing offenses, and 23rd of opposing defenses. They're just going to face an easier slate than they had a season ago, and that to me is going to propel them, even if they're the same fundamentally as they were last year. That was a team that started out 5-2, right? So if they're even the same fundamentally, I think that they breathe and they get to 7 wins.
Yeah, you didn't seem as amped when I said I liked the Bengals over.
But I looked into
now,
it. Yeah.
I think this, you were heavy on Tampa Bay. I love the Tampa Bay over. To me, Cincy is also a pretty obvious one.
Yep.
And it will be interesting to see what they do on Thursday, because they could go offense again, right? They could just say, hey, John Ross, God help us, you know.
But there's enough good receivers in the second round, right?
I agree.
That they
personally
can go ahead and do that too.
But you could see them moving in a lot of different ways. Quarterback.
What if TJ Hawkinson falls to them at 11, right? And you look and say, okay, Eifert has struggled playing the full-time tight end role, but if you have sort of more of a every down tight end and then you have 2 receivers and then Eifert possibly in the slot in that second tight end position, that could also enhance their offense, especially when you look at the way that Taylor's Rams, they played a lot of 11, but later in the season they played a lot of 12. I think that the scheme is flexible enough to incorporate that.
Absolutely. No fullbacks on this list, which is a little sad because I think they could use a little toughness.
And they could use a corner, right? I mean, William Jackson over the last 2 years is a top 10 corner in terms of WAR. He's among players like Chris Harris, Darius Slay, Marshawn Lattimore, and so on. They got Darqueze Dennard back in the slot. They have 2 good safeties in Sean Williams and Jesse Bates. But that Dre Kirkpatrick spot has been a troublesome spot for them for years. Obviously, injuries are a thing as well. So if Greedy Williams or DeAndre Baker, Byron Murphy, David Long, Rock Ya-Sin, possibly trade back candidates, frankly, if you could trade back into the 20s with if Drew Locke were to fall to 11, for example.
That's why I like their spot. I mean, I would take cornerback for half these teams because that's really what their need is. Don't get me started on the team at 2 who desperately needs someone to cover anybody. But hey. All right, that's it for this show. We're going to be back either Thursday night, probably early Friday morning because of how late the first round usually goes. And we'll give you a little debrief on the first round. We'll hate probably 85% of the picks, which is what you come to this podcast for. need some mean tweets, so gotta double down on that. In the meantime, head to profootballfolks.com. There's still time to get yourself a PFF draft guide so you can follow along. We'll be live with you guys, I believe, on YouTube. Chris Collinsworth will be there, Eric and I will be there, and our good buddy
Mike Renner,
the Bachelor at contestant, will be handing out roses. So, see you guys. Peace.